Que la que mi gente, Gran Pachilo here. Right now we're just 2 days away from the official release of the brand new set for the English format, BT16 Beginning Observer. And you know what that means. That's right, new product. This set focuses mainly on bringing support and cards related to the movie that came out a few months back, which is Digimon Adventure 02 The Beginning. It brings support for DNA decks such as Shakkoumon, Silphymon, Imperialdramon. It brings support for the armor decks, Magnamon and Rapidmon. It brings the Insectoids, MaloMyotismon, and also brings some support for decks related to Digimon Seekers, which are Pulsemon and Dorugoramon. This set really comes to shake up the meta, bring some really powerful contenders to the top spots of the meta, while also providing significant support for existing decks. So without further ado, let's get on to the breakdown. So the decks emerging or receiving major support from the BT16 set are as follows. We got Silphymon DNA, Phoenixmon X, Shakkoumon DNA, Imperialdramon, Magnamon X, Rapidmon X, TyrantKabuterimon, we got D-Brigade, we got Dorugoramon and Sons of Chaos, we got Pulsemon, and lastly we got MaloMyotismon. There are some small packages of support, such as the Agumon / Gaugamon for the Grey Snowgamon deck, and the Hellugarmon / Solugarmon for the Fenrilugamon deck. But today for this breakdown, I will just be covering the decks that either emerged from this set, such as the TyrantKabuterimon deck, or received major support for the corresponding lines or archetypes. So I won't be discussing those small packages of cards. So first off, we've got Red Yellow Silphymon DNA. For each deck being covered in this breakdown, I put up a ranking of the different areas of each deck, which are aggression, defense, speed, removal, comeback potential, and difficulty. Remember, this is just my opinion. This is how I feel about each deck based on playtesting, Japanese meta information that we have on hand, and overall the different, just analyzing different effects of each deck. So keep that in mind, it is my opinion. So an overview of the Silphymon DNA deck. This is a mix of Hawkmon and the Gatomon. We've got Barrier, we got Security Plus, we got a lot of DP minus removal, which is in my opinion one of the strongest removals in the game period. DP minus removal is just so strong. I ranked it a 3.5 in aggression because this deck likes to go fast, and you have the tamers to play out your rookies quickly. You have your option cards to play out your Digimon. You've got DNA, which lets you attack when without summoning sickness, basically, and you've got the amazing Valkyriemon Ace, which on top of being a blanket minus 5,000 on the board, you've also got Security Plus in his secondary effect. This deck likes to go fast and likes to go for likes to rush your security really fast. In defense, it has really poor defense. I put a 1.5. You pretty much don't have anything in terms of blocker, redirects, or anything. You mainly rely on Valkyriemon Ace for defense, which is the effect of Blast Digivolve and then giving your opponent's Digimon -5. Besides Valkyriemon Ace, you really don't have any defensive tools in the deck, so keep that in mind. Speed, I put up a 3. It is a deck that really likes to go fast and rush your security while sticking boards on the field, but it is a DNA deck, so you really do depend a bit on having your level 4s together. Then you have Barrier, which you can abuse to keep those level 4s on the field so that you can DNA. But remember, it is a DNA deck, so it might have some consistency issues sometimes. For removal, you've got the Silphymon, which is great. You got the Valkyrimon Ace, which is one of the best aces in the game currently. And minus DP, as I said, is one of the strongest removals in the game. So I rated it as a 3. It could be a 2.5, but I left it as a 3. And then we got comeback potential. Even if your board gets wiped, if you have either the Tamer, the Rookie in back, or the option card to play out for the level 4, you can respond very quickly by doing a DNA and then either going into Valkyrimon Ace or doing other shenanigans to basically remove your opponent's board, or at least hold them back to contest the board state. So you do have a bit of comeback potential. And the difficulty, although DNA decks usually all have the same game plan, which is promote, search, chip away your security and the DNA. Most of them share the same game plan. You do have some planning with the Valkyrimon Ace, how it's going to be used. You also got other aspects which in this you have to know when to go just insanely fast, just whatever, going to security, rush them down, and when to hold back and to bait your opponent into let's say setting up something that you can then remove with Valkyrimon Ace, Silphymon, or your other tools in the deck. So it does have some decent plays, which I'd say is medium difficulty, but being a DNA deck is pretty straightforward. For the notes I put up, it is a fun DNA based deck because it just likes to go really fast, control your opponent's board with DP reduction. I put up, it has, as I mentioned, excellent DP removal and Ace Valkyrie, and decent options and support with the option that lets you play out the level 4 and give it security plus, and the dual tamers and the promo tamers. But as I mentioned, it's DNA reliant, so keep that in mind, and it does sometimes have some consistency issues because you don't have too much search power in the deck, so keep that in mind. And next up, we got Red Phoenixmon X. The support from BT16 really just gives a breath of fresh air to the deck and to the support. We had a Phoenixmon. Now we got the Phoenixmon X and the Dorugoramon X. This deck, although not a strong contender for the big boys of the meta, it is a really fun deck. It does have a lot of explosive turns, especially when you go into the Phoenixmon X, which transforms all of your ondulations into end of attack effects. And it is a 13k with Blitz, so you're almost guaranteed that it'll always happen. And even if you get deleted on the security check, you still have all of those on deletion effects. Still, aggression is not so great. You are a stack deck and you don't have any security plus. You don't have any major removal. So it's kind of awkward. It's trying to be a mid-range deck, but you don't have efficient removal tools. You do have the effect of the on deletion, which is technically end of attack for the Phoenixmon X, which deletes a Digimon with as much or less DP as a Digimon played, which is up to 11,000. And then you have a bunch of small deletion effects around the rest of your deck. But the truth is, most of that isn't enough. And although it does seem like, hey, I've got an explosive turn. I played out some stuff. I played out some tamers. I've got my stack set up. You can easily lose that, and then your comeback potential is almost none. So for aggression, I put up a 2. You're kind of a slow deck to get going. For defense, you have absolutely no defense unless you run one of the blocker birds, but that's kind of limits your level 4s, and also they're not too difficult to remove, so your defense is almost 0. You do have Dorugoramon Ace, but Then you got speed, a bit slow, combat potential almost none. Removal, you do have some effects to control little bodies, and the up to 11,000 for the undeletion with end of attack of Phoenixmon X, which I mentioned earlier, but still lackluster. And it has great snowball potential, decent search / recycle. For its cards, your rookies, and most of them search. You have the BT11 Tamer, which searches on play, but as I mentioned, it lacks like relevant removal and is weak to any non-deletion removal. Just bounce, bottom deck, go to security, go to under a Digimon. All of those, even the Digivolve. Source strip to remove your undeletions. Like any removal in the deck just that is not deletion just obliterates your deck and totally like ruins your game plan for sure. So it has a really big glaring weakness that it's a red deck reliant on deletions, which sure, if it's your turn, you get them on end of attack. But if your stack gets removed with anything other than that's not a on deletion, you're basically cooked. Your goose, in this case Phoenix, is cooked. That's basically Phoenixmon X at the moment. Now we got yellow-black Shakkoumon DNA. I am really a fan of this deck. Yellow and black is just such a nice color combo. I really love this deck. It is a kind of mid-range DNA-based defensive toolbox. You got blocker. You can end your opponent's attacks if they get redirected, which you have blocker for. You can make your level 5 Shakkoumon unaffected by Digimon effects. You got decent removal with the Digivolve. Your level 6 Ace roster is amazing. You can run Bikemon Ace, you can run Mega Cargo Ace, which is just kind of a floodgatey level 6, really stinky level 6 Ace. You got Valkymon Ace. Like, this deck really has a lot of tools to work with, and it's just a really cool, fun deck. Basically, you get to set up your level 4s, you get to set up your level 5s either by DNA or using, I believe it's the EX5 or the BT16 Beginning. I don't remember which one is it. I really like that card in this deck because you can force one of your opponent's Digimon to attack at the start of their main phase and then just abuse your level 6 aces. I'm really a fan, at least for the version I've had most success and playtests, and what I've seen most works is just a deck that baits out ace or just forces your opponents to attack you, and you got a unaffected Digimon on the field, or you just got a bunch of tools at your disposal. You also got partitions, so if you were to be removed by anything that's other than battle or by your effects, you get to play out your level 4s, which are black and yellow. This deck I'm really a fan of, but I'll go over the different sections of the deck. You got aggression, which it is a slow defensive deck. It is more reactive deck. You don't have too much aggression in this deck, so your general game plan is to whittle down your opponent. But it has excellent defense. As I mentioned, you got blocker. You can end attacks that are being redirected. You can have your level 5 Shakkoumon, which is the main focus of the deck. You can have it be unaffected by Digimon effects. So you got great defense in the deck. The speed, same goes, is kind of tied to the aggression. So you are a reactive deck mostly. You won't be going too fast. So although you can do some explosive turns, given that you're willing to risk having your stacks deleted essentially, but speed is not too great. Removal, as I mentioned, is pretty good. You got the Digivolve. If you run Valk, you got DP minus. With Shakkoumon, you get to put something to a security stack. With Megagargo, you can suspend and block them from being able to unsuspend, or Digivolve, and then you can just swing over them. This deck really just has a lot of tools, and if it's properly built, you really have a menacing defensive toolbox to work with. You can also use the options if you're having issues ending games, which is you'll most likely have those issues because it is a kind of slow deck. There are some cards such as Zubagon Punch that helps somewhat if you have a card that's DP boosting. I believe the Ankylomon DP boosts at least by 1,000, which if you reach 13,000 DP, Zubagon Punch is enough to reach 16, which is the threshold to get the Security Plus, I believe. So you have the color black has so many tools to aid defensive decks to be more aggressive. So you can do some shenanigans. You got decent comeback potential, not too good, not too bad, but it's a 2.5. As I mentioned, you do have Partition. You have other cards that can either bring out your Digimon, or you can just reactively throw down an ace because you are an ace focused toolbox. But the difficulty to properly pilot this deck and really bring out its shine, like its true potential, it does have a high skill floor and a high skill ceiling. But once you get the hang of it, it's so nice being able to essentially control your opponent's plays by forcing them to attack, or just having a unaffected blocker on the field, unaffected by Digimon effects, and then you get to do Partition, which you can trigger other effects. It is really nice. It is a really nice deck. If you like defensive mid-range decks, this is definitely the deck for you. And this is one of my favorite decks of this format. Next up, we got one of the fan favorites, Blue-Green Imperialdramon. This set really brought some healthy support for the deck. Some really needed support, really much needed support for the deck. They gave us an entire new line for the Imperialdramon and Dino B. You got the Dragon mode, which you can use its secondary effect, kind of bait out your opponent so that you can Digiball for free into any fighter mode, which includes the all-new Fighter Mode Ace. Fighter Mode Ace also brings up some decent removal and helps with a bit of aggression. It helps with defense also because you can blast Ace, you can blast Digivolve. For aggression, you are a DNA deck, but you aren't going too fast. So you're not going slow, but you're not going ultra fast like some of the rush decks. But good thing is at the same time, this deck at the same time you're doing your aggression, you are kind of whittling down your opponent's board or just removing them or controlling them at least. So that's a good side of this deck's aggression. For defense, you don't really have much defense in this deck besides the dragon mode, the new dragon mode, and the fighter mode Ace. So keep that in mind. For speed, in this deck, your speed will be tied to how much you go into your opponent's security, basically, because you don't really have any other effects that help out with aggression or boost up your speed besides just going into your DNAs and then just using your effects to potentially go with jamming into your security, into your opponent's security, and then just unsuspending and checking. But it is stack reliant, so keep that in mind. For removal, fighter mode Ace is decent removal, but I put it as a 2. The only, like, you can remove by battle in some cases, but mostly you'll just be using the fighter mode Ace. And if you're running it, the Mega Death option, I believe it's Mega Death, the 5-cost option, which is a blue-green 5-cost, return one opponent's Digimon to the hand. So it could be boosted to a 2.5, but I left it as 2. Comeback potential, put it as a 2.5. You got, with the new cards, you got Partition, which really helps with the clapback of when you're getting your stacks removed. But keep in mind, if you get a fighter mode Ace removed from the field, it doesn't feel too good because you do overflow -4. You do get to play out your Digimon by Partition via the inheritance of the level 5s, but still it does hurt a bit. And if you get those level 4s removed, it is kind of difficult unless you have proper setup to come back. Difficulty, I always put up Imperialdramon as sort of a medium range because it's not too hard to pick up, but to properly master the deck. And now that you have a lot of options in your deck building, you have a lot of flexibility and a lot of different effects that can either interrupt your opponent's plays or just outright stop them. Knowing when to go in and when to hold back really helps to boost this deck's viability. So difficulty kind of medium. For the notes I put up, it is I believe it's one of the most solid DNA based decks at the moment. It has excellent search potential. All of your Vmon search, that's just ridiculous. Deck building flexibility, there are so many cards that just, at least for the level 6s, and they just go by name. So Imperial Fighters, you can tech some Dragon modes here and there. You have a lot of flexibility in your options and your tamers, but this deck is kind of easy to play around. Everyone knows what the deck does, and it's not really hard to just play around the deck, which is kind of what holds the deck back. And it's still missing that extra something to push it over the limit and kind of just smack around the top dogs of the meta, which we know is coming. BT17 coming in August does bring Imperialdramon support. So until then, we have to make do with the support that we got in BT16, but that support is generally healthy and brings new tools for the deck. Now here is the meanest, baddest gatekeeper of the BT16 meta. Magnamon X antibody, which is blue, yellow, and black. This deck really, the support this deck has received has been just so optimized, overly optimized in my opinion. The Magnamon that we got in the Gargamon starter deck is so strong. It's a security bomb which digivolves, and at the same time, if you have a level 3 Digimon on the field, which is blue or black, you can digivolve on top of it at the same time that it's being checked in security. And you also get to trigger the when digivolving, which in itself is a pretty good effect. You get to trash Digivolution cards based on the amount of colors your opponent's Digimon has, and then return any Digimon without evolution cards to the hand. Doesn't even have to be the one that you remove the sources. Plus you've got Armor Purge. That card, like the ST17 Magnamon, is so overtuned. Like the card is so strong. You got the Promo Davis, which on play plays you a Vmon to the field. All of the Vmons, well, not all, but like almost all the Vmons search out when played. So you essentially get so much value from a single Davis. Like turn 1 rookie in the back Davis into a Vmon searcher up front is so strong. That is like a dream start for your games with this deck. And it also gives you memory at the start of main phase if you have a Digimon with a free attribute. And on top of all those things, you got the all new Magnamon X, which has blocker, has armor purge, can digivolve directly from your level 4 Magnamon, so you skip your level 5 Digimon. And when digivolving, if it has an armor form or Magnamon X antibody underneath, the Digimon gets plus 3000 DP and is not affected by your opponent's effects, period. No options affected, no Digimon effects do anything, no tamer effects, nothing can scratch him. And then on top of that, he unsuspends. Regardless of the first effect, which is a conditional, you get to unsuspend. And all turns, when a card is removed from a security stack, you can refresh that same effect. You can activate one of the Digimon's when digivolving effects, which is just so strong that you can refresh your protections, boost up your Digimon's DP, unsuspend so that you can keep blocking. Like, you can also do it on the offensive, so you can attack, trigger the. If it's an option, it has to resolve first, so keep that in mind. But you can attack, then trigger your alternate effect to then gain more DP, unsuspend, and then you have a massive wall. Like, the defense in this deck is out of this world. You got decent removal. You got an almost impenetrable wall that is really hard to get around. Your aggression is really nice. You got all the armor purges, all the armor level 4s, which generally have 7k or more DP. I believe it's the BT8 Magnamon or BT9, which is just just gets boosted so much based on the amount of armor forms you have in your trash. Like, the aggression in this deck is really strong. But although you do have a lot of aggression, it doesn't necessarily mean you'll be ending your games quickly. Sometimes, if the only thing you can stick on the board is a Magnamon X, sometimes that's just not enough to go around with ending the game quickly. But regardless, it's still a pretty quick deck. The defense is immaculate, as I mentioned. Speed is really good. Removal, I put it as a 2 because your main removal option, lines are the Magnamon from the starter deck and the Heaven's Judgment option, which, let me tell you, in this deck, Heaven's Judgment is so strong. Just with Magnamon X antibody alone on the field, Heaven's Judgment is a minus 24,000 DP spread around however you like. Like, Heaven's Judgment is so good in this deck, and you can also play Blinding Ray to kind of keep promoting your protections and DP boost, so you can swing over stuff. So although you don't have too much removal, the removal you do have is pretty strong. Comeback potential, insane. With some memory, you will have some Davises on the board. You have some other devolution reductions with the I think the BT16 Vmon is the one that reduces devolution, or the promo one. I don't remember. But in the span of a single turn, if you have the correct cards in hand, you can just promote the rookie Digivolve into a Magnamon and then Magnamon X, which that gave you all the comeback you needed. Like, having a wall that can block twice and is also huge and protected from anything, that's all the comeback you need. And also, for one of the pluses in this deck, the difficulty floor, the skill floor in this deck is really low. So it will be a very expensive deck, just because you need, like, just in the Magnamon X antibody secret rares alone, you're spending upwards of $200. But for new players that don't really have a problem with budget, it has a low skill floor. It's essentially the most competitive deck of the format that's coming out of this set. One of the new decks that are coming out of this set. It is the king of this format, essentially. So it has a low skill floor, which really just helps to new players that don't mind spending on a good deck. You get a really good deck that will be supported forever and forever, because Vmon is just a staple flagship Digimon, so you won't have to worry about future support, because you will be getting future support here and there always. So I'd really recommend, if you are a new player to the Digimon game and you don't have a problem spending money on decks, go for it. Go for Magnamon X. You'll be able to win games consistently. It'll help you learn about the different interactions in the game, especially kind of planning out your effects. So it is a really good deck to pick up. Next we got Rapidmon X Yellow and Green. This deck, similar to the Magnamon X deck, you got a secret rare that's a 4 of in the deck, which drives the price a bit up. But this deck, also like the other Armor Form deck, you skip your level 5 Digimon. You've got not one, but 2 level 6s that skip level 5. You got Mega Gargomon Ace, which is one of the strongest Ace cards, and you got Rapidmon X, which gets to suspend everything on the board and then attack, and also everything suspended gets minus 4,000 DP. And when something is deleted by battle or by having no DP, you gain memory, and you have Armor Purge. Like, that card is so strong. Both Mega Gargo and Rapidmon X just bring a whole wave of power to the deck, and you have amazing tools. You got the double Typhoon option. You got the all new Tyrantamon X antibody. Like, the deck, it really has a lot of tools to work with, and it's really, really good. It has a high level of aggression. You can just swing out and swing out. You'll survive most of your attacks, and then you can just control your opponent's board at the same time. You have good defense, you have blocker, you have decent removal. You get to suspend everything and then remove something by attacking. You have pretty good defense, and Megagargmon Ace is such a defensive powerhouse. You got decent speed, as I mentioned. You're just going ham on the security while also controlling your opponent's board. You got decent removal with the minus DP, and then you also get to run other options like the I think it's Cargo Missile, Cargo Missile something. You get to play Heaven's Judgment. You get to play all sorts of cards that really help push the game forward. Like, this deck is so good. There are essentially two variants for this deck. Right now I'm just covering the Rapidmon X, but there is the yellow vaccine armor rapids, which basically uses the Rapidmon package in the yellow vaccine, which uses the Rapidmon X and the Magnamon X both. But I'm just covering the Rapidmon X at the moment. If you don't deal with the amount of bodies that is putting on the board, and keep in mind they have Armor Purge, you just get brushed over really fast. It has great consistency. You have good search power. You have Double Typhoon, which is amazing search. It does have a low skill floor, so it is a great deck for new players to pick up, especially when the pieces of the deck are really at the moment accessible, because you can essentially have the cards from the advanced starter deck of Tyrantamon and mix them with BT16, and then voila, you have a really strong meta deck contender, which is really easy to pilot and just will really get you going in the game. But like other armor decks, well, Magnamon X is unaffected, but like other armor decks, you got a pretty blatant removal versus non-deletion removal effects. Essentially the Digivolve, Source Stripping, Bounce, Bottom Deck, go to Security, anything that's not deletion will basically poop your party, because you can't trigger Armor Purge, and then you can't maintain a stable board presence. But besides that, the deck moves really, really well. I have no complaints with this deck. Now here we have one of the new contenders, one of the fresh decks that came in through BT16, which is the TyrantKabuterimon Insectoids deck. This deck is essentially likes to put up a huge wall while at the same time removing your opponent's board, and then you can redirect your opponent's attack with the effect of the level 5 Inherit or the Izzy Tamer. Like, this deck really is just one of the best definitions of green, which is just high DP boosting, going over your opponent's Digimon, and then just remaining there looking menacingly. For aggression, this deck mainly, its main form of aggression is attacking each turn, be it a opponent's Digimon to trigger piercing, or just going straight to security so that you can suspend. And while TyrantKabuterimon is suspended, it isn't affected by Digimon effects. And at the end of your turn, you get to suspend another Digimon to return one of your opponent's Digimon with as much or less DP. You also got good cards in the deck which also are immune to Digimon effects. Like with this deck, you can set TyrantKabuterimon can become such a huge wall to deal with. You can at some points it even can become like an 18,000 DP wall that is really hard to get over just swinging, and it's immune to Digimon effects. The defense in this deck is really good. I'd say almost second to Magnamon X, because Magnamon X is just unaffected by anything and is high DP. It'll go to 16, 19, but TyrantKabuterimon is really kind of reaches the levels of Magnamon X, but when it is suspended, key when it is suspended. If it's unsuspended, it won't get anything. But you get to set up, basically you get to attack each turn and at the same time set up a wall that is hard to deal with. The speed, it is a stack based deck. It is an insect deck, which has some decent search, but at the same time you rely on the trainings and the memory boosts to set up a proper stack. And then when you're attacking and doing your stuff, if you're not running, let's say, the GranKuwagamon package to, after you do your stuff with GranKuwagamon, go into Tyrant, it can be a little slow in ending games quickly, and sometimes has some consistency issues on setting up the correct stack, like the most efficient stack on the board. But you essentially, this is just green good stuff. If there had to be like a representation of green, this would be one of the flagships in those like lineups. Because it is so good at representing everything that green stands for. Now on to one of my favorites, which is Black D-Brigade. This any deck that just floods the board quickly, I'm instantly a fan of. You've got decent aggression in this deck. You can really establish a board presence really fast. The speed in this deck is really good. Defense, you can set up a wall of blockers that if one of them dies, they get replenished, or you get protection on your big stack. Like, it's really good, but watch out for those Death X-Spawn or whiteboard removal options. Crimson Blaze also is really bad versus really bad to have done to you. So keep in mind to watch out for those cards. If you know your opponent is running those cards, try to end the game quickly or be conservative with your boards. Remember that you do have your mind links, which you can leave under your Digimon as to not leave extra bodies for Death X. So keep that in mind. But the BT16 set really brought some really good support for the deck. You got a new removal with the Tankdramon, which reveals cards, reduces the opponent's Digimon's play costs, and then deletes a Digimon with a play cost of 4 or less. You got the, as I mentioned, DCD Bomb, which is another type of removal, and you can also do removal by just swinging over stuff sometimes. Now you have the DP boosting Commander Bond, which is also good and also helps avoid Crimson Blazes. So the set really brought some good support for the deck. As I mentioned, you flood the board very quickly. You have great search and recycle. You have a low skill floor. Like this deck, you can almost autopilot. In some situations, it does really get you have to plan out what you're going to set up on top of your deck. You have to keep watch of your deck to not mill yourself. But overall, the deck has a low skill floor. But it does lack big stack removal, which I guess you can tech in. For example, you can tech in some options like Iron Fisted Onslaught or something similar, Ultimate Flare, or just taking a level 6 a black level 6 that has a removal, but the deck itself does lack some big stack removal and is really weak to Deathexmon and Whiteboard removal. Now onto the Sons of Chaos Black Purple Dorugoramon deck. I'm really a fan of Dorugoramon itself. I really like the design, and I'm glad that it got some good attention in the Digimon Seekers web novel, I guess, webcomic, whatever. But it really brought some good tools for the Dorugoramon archetype, especially a new level 6 Dorugoramon, which we really needed. The aggression in this deck is pretty good. Like, this deck is probably the best all-rounder deck in the set. You've got decent aggression, decent defense, you got decent speed, you got decent removal. So it is basically one of the decks that you can pilot consistently. You've got great search, and all of your effects really just, like, the consistency of this deck really is boosted. It is so good, and especially you can either use the Sons of Chaos package or the Dex Dorugora package. Most of the time you will be using Dex Dorugoramon, but the difference is the level 5s and level 4s, which if you're running Sons of Chaos, mainly you go for Imperialdramon to play out another Sons of Chaos Tamer, which is the, I forgot the name, the new Tamer for Megadramon. And then the Megadramon to play out a Tamer with Sons of Chaos. And then if you switch over to the Dex lineup, you have the Dex Dorugoramon and Dex Dorugoramon, which are really good options also. It all depends on the preference of the player. You do have good removal with your, you have Collision, which is a new keyword in this set, which means if you, while you're attacking, all your opponent's Digimon gain blocker and they are forced to block with anything if able. You got a good deletion for a Digimon or Tamers. You can also suspend. You have, there is also the new option for Dorugoramon, which is Dorujin. Dorujin, something like that. Which is, if you had Dorugoramon on the field, you just get to remove like control your opponent's board with removal so efficiently. But since you do rely on having your Dorugoramon on the field, it might whiff sometimes. And although this deck has decent consistency, it is heavily reliant on SOC or Sons of Chaos Tamers to trigger your when the evolving effects or your different alterns effects. And if you're running the Dex Dorugora, which you probably will be, BT9 Dex Dorugoramon is a bit slow and easy to play around, especially if you're up against a deck that has a non-deletion removal, because if you go into Dex Dorugora and then they can just bounce your board unless you have the effect of the Dorumon, which makes you protected by anything except deletion, which kind of forces your opponent to delete you. So keep that in mind. But overall, this is a great all-rounder deck and has a lot of potential, especially with the support coming out in BT17. Get ready, this deck is a powerhouse. Onto another Digimon Seekers deck. We got Multicolor Pulsemon. Pulsemon, what are we gonna do with you? I really love Pulsemon's design and Pulsemon's lines, and he got a whole slew of effects in this set. You got like 4 lines of support in this deck, or 5. I think four level. Yeah, I think four lines of support for this deck, which include level 4s and level 5s, and then you got an a brand new level 6, and which is an SR, and also the, I think, uncommon Achillesmon, but that doesn't really come up. But even though you got all of that support, the deck still lacks consistency, and just it has a utter lack of aggression, lack of consistency. The new support doesn't mesh well with the old support, which is the old Rapidmon, and the promo Rapidmon, which in and of itself is really good, and the Shakkoumon, which gave you security plus. You can kind of ignore some of the support in this set to just go with the level 5 promo Bolt Bout and the level 5 yellow, the new level 5 yellow Pulsemon ultimate. But and I believe that actually would be better than just mix and matching colors at the moment, because you don't have any consistent searching. The support that you got given is really good, and it would in theory be really good if there was existing support with Pulsemon in their names, because none of the old Bulkmons, Boutmons, and Shakkoumons say Pulsemon anywhere, which just breaks the new gimmick of Digivolving if it has the Pulsemon name. Like, Shroudmon in this deck is really good. Shroudmon in and of itself is a cool card. You essentially have Giga Barrier, which is if it would get removed from the field by an opponent's effect, you can do the barrier effect of trashing the top card of your security to prevent it, and then at the same time you can give it stuff minus DP. And I believe it's on deletion, you get to recover until you have 3 cards in your security stack. But even with all these tools, the deck really lacks aggression, like consistent aggression, consistent search. You are really lacking on those ends. If you are running Pulsemon, please don't run it multicolor. Run it sort of yellow with a splash of the new stuff, but run it mostly yellow so that you can use your training cards or your boosts, and also use the the old Shakkoumon for aggression and also security recovery. So keep that in mind. But right now we're just focusing on the multicolor variant, which is what we got in the set. Speed is lackluster. Defense, your best defense tool is the Bolt Boutmon, but in and of itself doesn't have security, so blocker. So you'd have to somehow give it blocker to be able to kind of repel your opponent. Removal, you do have some decent removal in your different cards in the lineup, and Shroudmon in and of itself, and the option that's tied to Shroudmon is also really strong, especially because you can reduce its cost. So you do have some good removal, but I believe not enough to overlook the lack of aggression and speed. And overall, the deck really needs more support that's oriented towards the Pulsemon name, which we know we will get in BT17, but that is still a few months away. So as of now, the Pulsemon just doesn't have what it takes to really fight against the big dogs of the meta, which is sad. I feel sad about it. And lastly, onto one of my favorite decks in the set. I've always been a fan of the MaloMyotismon lines of decks, and this is no exception. The new support we get is really cool for the deck. You got purple MaloMyotismon. This deck is really kind of a reactive deck with a bunch of comeback potential. You have a bunch of purple shenanigans to bring back Digimon on your opponent's turn. to essentially play out with the new Rapidmon Magnamon tamer, which a weakness of the deck is it kind of relies too much on that tamer, but you do have effects to search out for it and stuff, so it doesn't hurt too much. So you get to delete the tamer and reduce the cost of one of your level 5s, which are Rapidmon or Magnamon, by 3. And then you, on deletion of the same tamer, you get to play out a Digimon with a level 5 or lower Myotismon in text from your trash without paying, but it does get deleted at the end of your opponent's turn. But with using the new MaloMyotismon, you can essentially play out a level 5 on the board for free, then play out another level 5. I mean, not for free, for 3 costs, I mean, and then play out another level 5 from your trash for free. Then Digivolve into MaloMyotis, and when Digivolving, delete the Digimon that would have gotten deleted at the end of your opponent's turn. You can just delete it directly, and then delete one of your opponent's unsuspended Digimon. And if you didn't delete a Digimon, you delete one of your opponent's tamers. This is both when Digivolving and when attacking, and it is not once per turn. Although the Digivolution cost of 5 is really steep, so you won't, most of the time you won't be getting to trigger both when Digivolving and when attacking. But also you have the alternative effect of when an effect deletes one of your other Digimon or tamers, trash the top card of your opponent's security stack. So keep that in mind. You can go for some chip damage there. But mostly you're focusing on reacting to your opponent's board, removing either their tamers or their Digimon. And then you also have the old Yu-Gi-Oh! Oikawa tamers, which when a Digimon with Myotismon and name gets deleted, you gain memory. And then at the end of your opponent's turn, if that tamer is suspended, you can delete it and play out a MaloMyotismon for free. And then when your turn starts, you can swing because it got played at the end of your opponent's turn. So this deck is really about playing mind games with your opponent. You also have the Venom Myotismon and the Mist Barrier option, which is an added layer of defense. So you this deck really is just kind of to play mind games with your opponent until you can set up explosive turns, remove their stuff, and then just trash their security or go for game. It is a bit slow and it might have some issues closing out games quickly since it is mostly reactive, but you do have plays where you get to ignore your opponent. And then for early aggression speed, it is kind of slow. Defense, you have your Ace Myotismon is blocker. You have the Mist Barrier, which lets you play out the Venom Myotismon with it itself has blocker and deletes a level 5 or lower, which is on play when Digivolving and on deletion. So Venom Myotismon kind of helps to hold back your opponent. You got the Venom Infusion option. You have a few like tech spots that you can really exploit, and that gets boosted by the fact that you don't run level 4, so you get to tech in more stuff. But overall, this deck, I really love this deck because it's just so embedded with purple shenanigans that you get to do some unexpected turns that your opponent is just there looking at you like, what just happened? But yeah, I've always been a fan of Myotismon, so I'll always be huffing the copium of the Myotismon lines. Well, with that our breakdown of the BT16 set comes to a close. If you enjoyed the content, as always, please leave a like, subscribe, and hit that bell to get notified when new videos come up. Let me know in the comments what type of videos you'd like to see. We will be doing a bunch of deck profiles for the BT16 set, including those discussed in this video. We'll be doing some match videos. So let me know if there's other content you'd like to see. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and peace.